Series 1, Day 1. The crack appeared at exactly 6:14 in the morning. I know the exact time, because my alarm had just gone off, and I was still lying in bed staring at the ceiling when the whole house shook. Not like an earthquake, not like thunder. It was one single violent shudder, like something enormous had just punched the ground from underneath. My coffee mug fell off the nightstand and shattered on the floor. The lights flickered twice and went out. And then everything went completely silent in a way that did not feel natural. Like the whole town had just stopped breathing at the same time. My name is Daniel Marsh. I am 34 years old. I have lived in Harlow Creek, Montana my entire life. Population 612 people. One grocery store, one diner, one church, one school. The kind of town where everybody knows your name and your business and your grandmother. The kind of town where nothing ever happens. I am writing this from the basement of Harlow Creek First Baptist Church on day 6. I have a flashlight for bottles of water, 2 cans of beans, a first aid kit, and this notebook. Outside it is completely dark, even though it is the middle of the afternoon, because the thing that came out of the ground does not like light. And so it has done something to the sky that I do not have the words to describe yet. There are no other survivors. Not that I have found. Not anymore. But I need to start from the beginning, so that whoever finds this notebook understands exactly what happened to my town. I need you to understand that the people of Harlow Creek were good people. They did not deserve this. None of them deserve this. So let me take you back to day 1. When the shaking stopped, I got up and looked out my bedroom window. I live on Caldwell Street, 3 blocks from the center of town. From my window, I can normally see the water tower, the roof of the diner, and the top of the old grain silo at the edge of Miller's farm. That morning I could see all those things, but I could also see a massive cloud of dark brown dust rising from somewhere near the center of town. Rising and spreading like smoke from a fire, except there was no fire, just dust. And that silence, that terrible pressing silence that made my ears ring. I grabbed my jacket and ran outside. Half the street was already out on their lawns. Old Mr. Henderson from next door was standing in his bathrobe, squinting at the dust cloud. The Ramirez family from across the street were huddled together on their porch. Little Maya Ramirez, who was 7 years old and missing her 2 front teeth, was holding her mother's hand and pointing at something in the sky above the dust cloud. I looked up and saw a flock of birds, hundreds of them, all fly away from the center of town as fast as their wings could carry them. Every single bird in Harlow Creek, leaving at the same time. I should have left with them. I ran toward the center of town instead. I know that sounds crazy, but I was thinking maybe a gas line had exploded or a building had collapsed and people needed help. I was thinking like a neighbor, not like someone who should be running for their life. That is the thing about disaster. It never looks like what it is in the first few minutes. It always looks like something you can fix. The crack was in the middle of Founders Square. That is a little park at the center of town with the old statue of the town founder and the 4 wooden benches and the flower beds that Mrs. Patterson maintained like they were her own children. The crack ran from one end of the square to the other, about 60 feet long and maybe 4 feet wide at its widest point. The edges were jagged and raw like the ground had just torn itself open. Steam, or something like steam, was rising from inside it, dark and warm and smelling like something burnt and ancient, like the inside of the earth had its own smell, and it was nothing like anything I had ever breathed before. About 30 people were standing around it by the time I got there, just standing and staring the way people do when something is so far outside their experience that their brain cannot decide what to do next. Sheriff Roy Delaney was there, already on his radio calling it into the county. Pastor Williams from the church was there, standing very still with his hands clasped together and his lips moving slightly. Tommy Briggs, who ran the diner, was there still holding a dish towel he must have grabbed when he ran out. My best friend since 3rd grade, Kevin Adler, appeared beside me and grabbed my arm and said, "What in the world is that smell?" And I said, "I do not know," and we both stood there staring into that crack in the ground like idiots. For about 20 minutes, nothing happened. The county dispatch told Sheriff Delaney they were sending someone to assess. People started taking pictures on their phones. Someone made a joke about Harlow Creek finally making the news. The fear started to settle into curiosity, the way it does when something scary turns out to have a boring explanation. Then the sound started. It came from inside the crack, deep and low and rhythmic, like breathing but slowed down to one breath every 30 seconds. The ground vibrated slightly with each exhale. People stopped talking. Phones went down. Every single person standing around that crack went completely still. Sheriff Delaney took one step toward the edge and shone his flashlight down into it. The light did not reach the bottom. He leaned a little further. I saw his shoulders tense. I saw his hand tighten on the flashlight. He stood there for 3 full seconds looking down into that crack while everyone held their breath. Then he stumbled backward like something had shoved him hard in the chest. He hit the ground and scrambled to his feet and turned to face us, and his face was the color of old paper and his mouth was opening and closing but no sound was coming out. Kevin grabbed my arm tighter. Sheriff Delaney finally found his voice. It came out as a whisper, but in that silence, everyone heard it perfectly. He said everyone needs to go home right now and lock their doors. Nobody moved. He said it again, louder this time. Go home. Lock your doors. Do not come outside tonight. Do not open your doors for anything. People started moving then. Fast. The crowd broke apart and people grabbed their families and started moving back toward their houses. And I grabbed Kevin's sleeve and said, "What did he see?" And Kevin said, "I do not know, but I am not staying to find out." And he pulled me away from the square. I looked back once as we ran. The steam rising from the crack had changed color. It was darker now, almost black, and the breathing sound had gotten louder, slower, like whatever was down there was waking up, like it had been asleep for a very long time, and the sound of all those human voices standing above it had reached down into whatever darkness it had been sleeping in and slowly, patiently, pulled open its eyes. I ran home. I locked my door. I sat in my kitchen with every light in the house on and listened to Harlow Creek go quiet around me. At 11:47 that night, I heard the first scream. It came from the direction of Founders Square. One single long scream that cut off, so suddenly it was almost worse than if it had kept going. Then silence. Then another scream from a different direction. Then another. Then nothing. I pressed my back against the kitchen wall and put both hands flat against my chest because my heart was pounding so hard it scared me. I have a condition called supraventricular tachycardia. When I get extremely frightened or stressed, my heart rate can spike to dangerous levels in seconds. My doctor has told me my whole life that I need to stay calm in stressful situations. That panic is my enemy. Sitting in that kitchen listening to my town scream in the dark, I understood for the first time in my life what it truly meant to fight your own body just to survive. The screaming stopped at midnight. By morning, the town was silent. I looked out my window at first light, and Caldwell Street was empty. Mr. Henderson's front door was wide open. The Ramirez family's porch light was still on, but there was no one on the porch. Maya's little pink bicycle was lying on its side in the middle of the road, like she had just dropped it and run. I tried to call Kevin. No answer. I tried Sheriff Delaney. Nothing. I tried my mother who lived 4 streets away, and the phone rang and rang and rang until I had to put it down because I could not breathe. I was alone. And somewhere out there in the streets of my town that I had lived in my whole life, something was moving. I could hear it. Not with my ears. With my chest. Every time it took a step, the ground sent a vibration up to the floor and into my feet and straight into my rib cage, and my heart stuttered in response like it recognized something in that rhythm. Like some ancient part of my body knew exactly what was out there before my brain was ready to accept it. I pressed my hands against my chest and begged my heart to stay quiet, because I had a feeling, deep and cold and certain, that it could hear me too.